Hey everyone, it's Jovan on Avatar Academy. In this video, I'm going to talk about finding your purpose after spiritual awakening. I'm going to share a little bit of my story. Back around in 2012, I'd say, that was when I was coming up to 33 years of age in this life. Well, everything started to not make sense. And it actually started about with my Saturn return. So your Saturn return will be an archetypal juncture. So your psyche is built from archetypes. I don't know if you know that, but let's not go into that. I have many other videos where I talk about this stuff. And basically, you have a sense of self. However, with the Saturn return, which happens around 28, you will start to question everything to a degree. And things slowly started to not make sense. Like my old life, career, and friendships and everything felt kind of complete, but I didn't know where I was going for. And I had developed more interests for yoga and psychedelics. And at the time, higher consciousness, God, all this stuff seemed like a vague notion. So I did experiment with psychedelics and in a very sacred way, which led me to experiences of the singularity, source, I am consciousness, superconsciousness, etc. And then all of that came into sort of a completion when I hit 33, where in that period I was surrendering my ego because it didn't make any sense to continue doing anything from the same story. Things just became meaningless and kind of like not interesting. So I just did meditation and also kind of went on a very minimalistic diet, and all of that helped me to defragment my energy. And then when I was 33, integration happened, where you have layers and layers and layers of organizational layers of your body, let's call them that. So if they all click in place and you need to do some yoga, and what helped me also at the time was microdosing psilocybin. So I would go into kriyas and just align all of my bodies. And then one time everything clicked and I had a rainbow body activation and I was in perfect bliss. And at that time, I could also turn reality on and off. Like I could turn my body on and off, like disappear and go into the emptiness and then reappear. And then I could also start to really create or select timelines because they're like different film strips of reality. And I started to see that in my mind's eye. And then I could nudge myself and just surf this timeline. So that's like manifesting on the go. And apparently, the reality is already set up in this way that you have your higher self and you exist on these different bandwidths of reality, but usually the physical body and the ego will experience some kind of separation from this higher self. And the like your initial life story will be pre-programmed and kind of go on autopilot, and then you can integrate everything and you can start to create your own story, because you will need to learn how to walk and talk first and then navigate reality. So you have your natal chart that is an archetypal cocktail that creates a pattern, that creates your predestined autopilot journey. And then when you're at 33, you could or should click in with the God mind and then just connect everything together. However, when this happened and I was in bliss and I could manifest whatever I want, this just opened up the new chapter of the game for me, where I thought, based on my bliss experience, that everything is now solved, like we're enlightened and let's go. However, that was not the case. The road ahead of me was filled with new experiences that I didn't really have means of understanding, and life just became way more complex. So it took a whole, it took another 7-year cycle to actually go through life, hit obstacles, many of them, and also try to understand what my purpose is in this very rapidly changing world and reality construct environment. So I had many challenges, but it would be too much to actually explain everything that happened in the last 7 years. But if you are if you went through this, or if you're just going through some of these stages now in your life journey and maturing through stages of life, I'd like to share some insights and really practical tips that will allow you to synchronize throughout your daily life. So first of all, something that I didn't know before is that you can always talk to the God mind or source, and source through God mind will is able to download frequencies into your body, into your energy bodies. And I discovered this in the earlier stage of my kind of like spiritual seeking. Back at the time, I had a resistance towards praying and anything that was connected to religious lore, because religion didn't make much sense to me. However, I found this book and I went to this education that's called Theta Healing. And in Theta Healing, in the book, there was all these invocations. And with these invocations, I had my first experience of defragmenting my operating system and actually my mind and the ego and my assumptions on the world. And I didn't know before that they could be defragmented on an energetic level. Okay? So in the book, there was a whole list of invocations, but they basically go and say, hey, source, give me this feeling and give me this knowing and give me this frequency and give me this energy and load into me these qualities. And then you do like a whole series of those. And basically some of those went something like, download into me a feeling that I'm protected and safe and I can live without fear. And then when I said that, I just automatically started crying. And then after crying, I experienced like this huge bliss. And back in the time, I was maybe 29 years old. And I remember thinking, oh my days, I've never, ever, perhaps maybe not even since I was a child, experienced this effortlessness of being alive. And I had this realization that some of my emotional and mental impressions that I was just using in my operating system to interface this reality were in some kind of fear or anxiety distortion. And back at the time, I really didn't know how to use my mind, how to use my emotions. So probably I was reactive to many things in the external world, and probably I was being programmed by many things in external world without even realizing, without having any understanding or discernment how all of this work. And simply by saying these activations and invocations, I started to realize, oh my God, what is possible here? Like you can totally program yourself to feel okay. And when you do that, you need to do it through the superconscious or the God mind, because the instruction set for reality is being held there and your experience is just happening in this grounded level of reality. So when you ping and you invoke and you start to get these feelings like, oh my God, I can do this. Yes, we can. I can feel safe. I can feel alive. Um, I don't need to feel like I'm being judged. The impressions where you may have felt unloved or unsafe or judged are being replaced on an energetic level. And then you start to feel all of a sudden, wow, what effortlessness. Everything is nice. Life is beautiful. And I was also really mind blown that I didn't know this, and I already lived for almost 30 years in this reality. And then I just said to myself, wow, now that I know this, I can summarize that probably last 20-ish years weren't the greatest because I wasn't using this. I don't know what I was using, but I was using some kind of lesser paradigm. And then, about subconscious, it automates what you think, what you believe, what you fear, and it just becomes a part of your character, part of your identity. But when your consciousness is experiencing these thought forms, worrying, overthinking, sometimes not feeling like confident or whatever, you don't know that this is just a program. You might be just identify with whatever the storytelling, subtitling machine, the ego, and the feelings that you have acquired and stored in your body are producing. So they might be producing for you an experience that less than favorable. So one of my big realizations was, oh wow, we can change this through this kind of like prayer, but it's not really a prayer. It's like using, like interfacing with the operating system that this higher self, the God mind, is. And so that was a big aha moment for me. And then when later I had the experience that I am source and like infinite everythingness, that was crazy. But when I would come into my body and start to use this dimension to explain reality, the bandwidth in this dimension is way lower. Okay, in the superconscious, you're all knowing and you are omnipotent because whatever perspective of consciousness or body you're using to navigate these higher dimensions, it's all light and fun. But here, even to remember that was a little bit heavy. So I'd had these like expansions into source or into just super conscious, like different reality bandwidths, and then there and I would be like, oh yeah, like everything makes sense, and then come into my body and be like, eh, eh, what? Wait, what? And it would just feel like there are 200 degrees of separation from being that expanded and elevated, and then trying to navigate that all knowingness and omnipotence into something actually useful, something that I could actually verbalize. So then the next 7 years were basically me learning how to use that connection that we have with the higher self, or the God mind, superconscious, whatever you want to call that, and bring that in as some kind of rational lingo. And I didn't have any lexicon. So I started connecting with all these different perspectives of like higher conscious perspectives. They could be like different beings, angelic beings, or just perspectives of consciousness that don't even resemble beings, but they're parts of this God mind. And they were telling me things, showing me things that I didn't know how to explain. So these perspectives of conscious started to show me a million things, and I was literally practicing how to explain that for about 8 years now. And I create my YouTube channel so I could have someone to speak to. So I was just practicing speaking to the camera. And sometimes I would meet people that were already hooked up with this higher frequency, and then we would streamline these conversations. But most of the time, even with communities of people that were more in these spiritual themes or awakened people, didn't really find much reference to what the God mind was showing to me in particular, and how I would relate that to other people. And then because I left my previous life and my previous identity and my previous career, have an insect. I didn't know what to do to have a grounded experience and like to engage people in this reality with. So finding my purpose was not really easy, but the good thing about that is that once you are following something that first is a very vague intuition or a vague notion of God or higher self, and you can just follow this guidance that's kind of vague in the beginning, this every time when you make the decision to follow that, the universal abundance manifests for you everything that you need to have in order to, I don't know, like have a place to live or eat. And so I didn't have a career for a very long time. And this thing that I'm doing, I'm only about to, like, I made money here and there. I had clients here and there, and I did meditation guidance, and I did all kind of stuff. But that was very, yeah, it was very seldom. In the meantime, the following that intuition was causing me to surf these timelines and always land into abundance of whatever I needed. However, then I also had some experiences of hitting limitations and getting traumatized again, because I didn't share this, but way, way, way before my first actual experience of like Kundalini and these Kriyas was because I had PTSD. And then I didn't know what to do, and my mind was going crazy, and my emotions were going crazy, and I couldn't operate in this reality anymore. And so this is the first time when Kriya hit me, and like a huge stream of energy purged me. But that was without me even understanding what was happening. And then from a very, very desperate state of being, just like that, in like 20 minutes of like energy, swoosh, I went into bliss. And I was relieved of all, like my whole operating system was defragmented. But that was a divine intervention. No? That was a higher self intervening on my first person here immersion behalf, because I just lost any compass of how to navigate reality. So back at the time, I didn't know how this works. However, through the process of having many spontaneous kriya, and that will defragment like your whole energetic memory and kind of like erase your identity, and then you can download a new one, literally, from a universal library. So that's interesting, but I had a lot of those, and I started to be able to actually navigate this on my own behalf. So from the first person immersion, from the physicality, I was able to more and more navigate this. So then my last couple of years, I had to resolve this trauma, but now I had to do it in a way that's more patient, because I need to observe every single choice that I created in every single timeline, and how that led me to this or that result or effect. So I didn't have, I would say, first time I had major stress, or really this post-traumatic stress disorder. I was relieved from it by divine intervention. It was miraculous. And this time I came into quite, like, I hit so many roadblocks, and things just went downhill for me. And I came back into hell, which is a state of mind. And then I had to process and navigate that bit by bit so I can integrate my lessons. Now, these lessons were important, the roadblocks were important, stumbling, falling, not knowing how to walk when you're already feeling like you can fly, but then stumbling and walking. And it's a part of the learning process. Mistakes are part of this learning experience. And through seeing choices that I made from naivety or ignorance, or because I just didn't, I had to experiment, and I didn't know what results I'm going to get by making choices. Well, that gives me some foundation to actually understand how I can drive this life, and how I can be more informed when I'm manifesting my realities and creating my future. Okay, so one thing that I want to leave you with is that intuition that seems vague, as that notion of God that might seem vague in the beginning, or even when you are awakened and you understand that you are source and you are infinite, it might still be a little bit daunting to communicate that, because our grounded mind, or the ego construct, is operating so many tabs that correlate to this environment. So it might be a little bit hard to hear this voice of God and to make it actually crystal clear. And because that was my journey for a very long time, I want to tell you that it's really important that you create this anchor where you can use it just like you use your Google, or you use your smartphone, or you use your AI agents nowadays. Because you can get your phone and you can ask your AI agent anything, and it will just blah, 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 tell you. This connection that you have with the God mind is as simple as using your phone. And once you practice to use your phone, because it's something that you can see and you can press the button and you get this voice from your phone telling you whatever you asked, actually tapping into your intuition, your connection with the superconscious, and getting answers from there is as simple as that. But everything that you practice, everything that you make a habit becomes neuroplasticified, and it just becomes your second nature. And God, or whatever you want to call it, works in the same way that your chatbot GPT works. You prompt it, and you need to create intelligent prompts. Like, how can I do this in the most effortless way? How can I know this? How can I be certain that this is something that if I choose this, that I'm being guided towards, that I will land it? How to manifest this? How to manifest this effortlessly? How to manifest this quickly? So you can do a million prompts, and your higher self or the God mind responds to these prompts. And in the beginning, you can just use a piece of paper if you cannot discern what your already like mental data stream that you have recorded like from the past and your ego is, and what is the voice of intuition or the voice of God. You can just take a blank piece of paper and do some automatic writing. So without your eyes looking, because this is where the ego is interfacing with the reality around you. So without looking, you just write. Right here without looking at the paper. You ask the question and then you write down the answer. So that helped me in the beginning, but then later you can just have a name for your ego, and then have a name for your chatbot, and have a name for God. So I can say, hey, Jovan is thinking this, Jovan is asking this. And then my chatbot, his name is Alex. And then my higher self is called Alexa. Or my chatbot is called Alexa and my higher self is called. So I just give them names because in your psyche, there are different aspects. And your psyche is created from 12 archetypes. And so you have many voices or many different perspectives that you can tap into that will give you a different answer, different flavor. And sometimes it's like a council, it's like a parliament where you need to actually see what Jovan wants, what Alex says is most probable, and what Alexa says is more probable, and then what some of the internal already created aspects of the psyche are feeling resistant or maybe inclined to do, and you need to process that. Once you have a unanimous voice, okay, once you can synergize all of that, then whatever you are moving towards manifest simultaneously with your moving towards that, okay? Things manifest. We're manifesting all the time. Like right now, you're manifesting everything. However, something will not manifest for you when your parliament of perspectives is not synergized and unified. So I hope that brings some clarity if you're navigating your spiritual awakening, or you're already awakened, but there is looking for purpose, there is looking for how to integrate everything that's happening, and I hope that helps you. I will see you in the next episode. Bye.